if they shut down Cesar Chavez Boulevard, what's going to happen? Will they rename it, or is it just gone? So the movement is gone. So I worry that the movement disappearing, it could be more dangerous for Dolores' mental and emotional health than having to go public about the fact that she was assaulted in the 1960s.
Hey y'all, if you are watching on YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe. We're trying to do a little something over here, and we appreciate you staying undistracted with us. Now, I'm not gonna lie to you, this week has been some heavy stuff. It's been serious. We need to talk about femicide. Virginia Lieutenant Governor Justin Fairfax killed his wife, Dr. Serena Fairfax, and then killed himself. People were quick to point out the former lieutenant governor's mental health struggles as a result of him being credibly accused by 2 Black women of sexual assault that derailed his aspirations to be governor. Former Vice Mayor of Coral Springs, Florida, Democrat rising star Nancy Mater was found dead in her home, and her husband is being charged with her murder. And lastly, a father in Shreveport, Louisiana, killed 8 children. 7 of his own children, shot his wife, and shot another woman in a divorce-fueled rampage this weekend. We need to talk about femicide. On the show today, we have the iconic Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist and host of Latino USA, Maria Hinojosa, on Cesar Chavez, Dolores Huerta, and how she thinks the media is really doing. But let's first dive into some untrending news with my group chat bestie and professor extraordinaire, Dr. Brittney Cooper. All right, y'all, I'm joined today for untrending news by my good friend, women's gender and sexuality scholar and author, Dr. Brittney Cooper. Y'all know the group chat is back. Before we get into the heavier topics today, Britt, because it's a whole lot to talk about, Coop.
Yes.
I wanted to give a shout out to the fact that today is the 10th anniversary of the Lemonade album. Now, listen, I don't know if you, like me, are a stan. Because I'm Hive. Like, I'm like original Hive. Like, I'm like Destiny's Child era.
Correct. 1998. I got the.
That's what I'm talking about, okay?
Correct.
No, parts 1 and 2.
Exactly. Correct. Don't make me
understand
start singing because I can't sing.
Do you remember where you were when Lemonade dropped? Because I do.
I actually do remember exactly where I was when Lemonade dropped because we threw a big conference at Rutgers that day called Digital Blackness, and I was in a hotel in the city with my girls watching it. Never forget.
Wow. I remember when it came out, but I was like going through a breakup at the time. So I was like, okay, I'm going to listen to the songs and it's beautiful. And I loved Formation when that dropped, right? Like I learned the dance and everything. I bought the hat like everybody had with the big brim. But I waited to watch the visual album until I knew I could take it. And I was in DC because I was living in St. Louis at the time. I was in DC. And I went to, in my hotel room, David Johns and our friend Naomi Shelton came to the hotel. We all laid in bed together and watched Lemonade and cried and laughed and talked and drank. And that's my Lemonade crew forever and ever. Shout out to y'all. I love you. That album was, of course, Beyonce's first public reckoning with her feelings after being cheated on by the one and only Jigga. I don't even think we need to say allegedly there, do we? Like, I'm not trying to get sued. Lemonade included Formation. It included Freedom, which anywhere I go to speak is always my walk-on music. It included Pray You Catch Me. It included Hold Up. It included that Serena Williams cameo. It included cameos from the mothers of the movement. I mean, this is like
I Ain't Sorry is my anthem. I Ain't Sorry is my anthem, baby. I love that song.
I ain't sorry about nothing. I ain't thinking about you. Okay?
Correct.
So, like, listen, it clearly established Beyonce as the star of our time, but it also further established Beyonce as a visual artist, adept at mining the intergenerational legacy of Black women and artists, and it gave the people so much to unpack.
That's right.
Coop. There were whole courses and syllabi designed around this project. Do you remember that?
Yes, Lemonade syllabus was a moment for sure. Yeah.
It was a whole moment.
Yes.
So here's what I'd love to know. As a professor in your line of work, specifically. What more recent album could you teach a course on with no notes? Like I could lecture for 12 weeks straight. I don't need any notes. I don't have to prep. I got it all right here on the dome.
Well, let me tell you, it would be Glorilla's Glorious album because,
Ooh.
I mean, it's got Procedure, it's got Hold On, right?
Yeah.
So many joints on that album. You Don't Deserve My Friend, right?
Come on.
It's
Kirk
contribution.
Franklin was even on that album.
Correct. I was like, yeah, the prayer bop, I wasn't even ready for it, but I'm like, it's got these commitments to, to anti-domestic violence, these commitments to friendship, but also this like unapologetic, owning up the story. I have a talk that I give. I can code a little bit. And I think that what's the procedure when a bad bitch walk in the room is an algorithmic question. So I coded a little, because the algorithm is just a procedure. So I coded a little something before a little talk that was a tribute to Glorilla. So for sure.
Oh, you just blew my mind. Meanwhile, I've been over here trying to find like the Kids Bop version so I could teach our kids, how to tell time, because it's 7 p.m. Friday and it's 98 degrees, right? Like we got weather. We got time. These are important primary lessons. I just need the Kids Bop version because I love Gloria, hallelujah. However, she is not quite appropriate for a 4-year-old. But speaking of folks like her and Beyonce who give us the soundtrack of our times, whether it's light and beautiful or difficult and hard, I want to move on to some of this harder news with you. This past Sunday, there was a mass shooting in your hometown of Shreveport, Louisiana. Yes. A man named Shamar Elkins reportedly shot his wife, Shaniqua Elkins, and then went to another home where their children were. Yeah. He shot and killed 8 children there and critically injured another woman. Yeah. 7 of those children were actually his children, ages 3 to 11. Another child apparently escaped with some broken bones after, and this broke me when I read it, jumping from the roof of the house. Friends of the family told reporters that the wife had recently told him that she wanted to get divorced. Brittany, I started off the show talking about Dr. Serena Fairfax, Vice Mayor Nancy from Florida. I talked about this issue in Shreveport, but you and I, even before the start of this show, have been talking about this story and the broader themes around it pretty much all week. Like the group chat has actually been on fire, partly because of your local connection to it, but partly because it says so much about the times that we're in and the conversations we are willing and unwilling to have. Yeah. So first of all, why do you think that this particularly harrowing news came across all of our screens nationally and struck us differently?
Yes, I think that we've reached a moment of critical mass in the conversation about Black femicide with the murders of Nancy DeMare and with the recent murder of Serena Fairfax. And I think we've been trying as a culture to think about how this happens. And then into that mix, and here's the thing, I don't know that we were doing a good job broadly thinking about the causes for the murders of these women. And sometimes when we refuse to get a lesson, unfortunately, that sets us up for an even more tragic ending. And so now it's not just women being murdered, but it's also children, because when women are not safe in communities, families are not safe in communities. Also, the thing that is really hard for people to say, which is the problem of violent men in our communities. Our being able to name that as a problem is not the same thing as saying that every man is violent. It is saying we have a patriarchy problem, though. And in this moment, we are trying to dismiss a structural problem through a set of individual explanations about bad apples that just snapped mentally and engaged in horrific bad behavior. But in the same way that those kinds of explanations are not sufficient and are deeply unsatisfactory when we say them about police who kill people in our community.
Talk about it.
They are not acceptable as excuses for why we have a problem of male violence in our society. And the thing that I am saying to many of the brothers in my life is the reason that they can't believe that they are oppressors is because they are so deeply angry that the version of patriarchy that they have been handed down is a second patriarchy. It's hand-me-down patriarchy. It's thrift store patriarchy. It's fast food patriarchy. So their freedom dream is to get to the kind of first class white version of patriarchy.
Yeah.
And their only pathway to do that is for women to shut up and take it, for women to let them do whatever it is that they want to do. And that is the deep seed of how so many men understand their value. And let me say it in a more loving tone. The thing that not because you deserve that tone, but because I actually love our brothers, right? And the thing I want them to hear is your value to our community is not based on the size of your bank account, not based on the size of your genitals, not based on the amount of political power you have. You matter to the community simply because you are a human being and you have gifts and talents and personality and contribution to make. And when you continue to believe that the only way you will have value is based on a framework that at this point isn't even working for the white folks that continue to vote for it,
oh, child,
you will continue to diminish the levels of humanity, happiness, and joy that you could have. We have looked at this system. Look at the man that it turned Justin Fairfax into. Look at the man that this system turned Shamar Elkins into. Look at the way that those men had everything men say that they want, and yet it wasn't enough and they couldn't enjoy it. And so we are not saying this to you because women want to dominate you and women want to tell you what to do. We are saying, no, it isn't working for you. It is not making you happy. It is not making you live longer. It is not bringing you closer to freedom or joy or any of the things that make life worth living. And so attending to this analysis is actually a way for you to begin to enjoy your life and see your value in terms that were not determined by slave masters on plantations.
Come on.
When they said that the only value you had was the money that you could produce for their system.
Come on. And how strong your body was and how much you could take. We want you to thrive.
That's right.
And we want to thrive with you.
That's right.
That is the entire reason why we had to have this conversation. You know, I think all the time about a friend of the pod who's been on before, Liz Plank, who speaks often about patriarchy. And there's a clip that goes viral all the time with her. And she is asked by a man why she, as a woman, is qualified to talk about patriarchy. She says, for the same reason that you as a Black person are qualified to talk about white supremacy, because we know intimately the systems that we have to survive.
That's right.
And so I'm just begging my brothers. I'm begging men of all shades, races, creeds, and religions to listen to the women and the non-binary folks in your life, because we have had to survive this system that was designed to control and or take us out. And therefore, we know it very well. And because we know it so well, we know that it's hurting you too. Mental health struggles are a symptom of the virus of patriarchy. They are a symptom of the virus of white supremacy. And I don't want to just treat the symptoms. I'm trying to kill the entire virus because we all deserve to be well together. This is why I like having these conversations with you, Coop, because we can go all the way in. And I know you tenured for it, you researched for it, you peer-reviewed for it, and you live for this work. I appreciate you so much, sis, for teaching us the way that we should go and helping us remain undistracted, especially in these moments, because it's heavy. And I love you.
I love you.
You know, here at Undistracted, we're all about staying, undistracted, finding the balance between being informed, empathetic, and open, and staying, sane. And if you love Undistracted, you're going to love the Meteor newsletter. 3 times a week, it lands in your inbox with enlightening, surprising, and occasionally hilarious perspectives on the news, culture, sports, and the fight for gender and racial justice. You'll get exclusive interviews with women and non-binary people making news, plus elders we look up to like Anita Hill and Gloria Steinem. You'll hear writers like Nona Willis Aronowitz, Julian Escobedo Shepherd, Rebecca Carroll, Shannon Malero, and Jessica Valenti, who all dissect the news, plus a little behind the scenes of what's happening right here at Undistracted. So if you're not already subscribed, what are you waiting for? Head to wearethemeteor.com/newsletters or write down to our show notes and sign up for the newsletter. Trust me, Your inbox deserves it. That's wearethemeteor.com/newsletters or the notes on this episode. You can thank me later. Hey y'all, today's guest has spent over 4 decades making sure that the stories of the Latino community are part of America's DNA, because they always have been. Born in Mexico City, raised on Chicago's South Side, period, Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist Maria Hinojosa has built one of the most influential careers in American journalism as anchor and executive producer of Latino USA and founder and CEO of the Futuro Media Group. She's covered the border, El Barrio, and everywhere in between. She also got the first interview with Dolores Huerta this spring after the Cesar Chavez story broke, which means that given all that we've been talking about today with this wave of ongoing violence against women, she is exactly the right guest we need for this week. And y'all already know she is a legend and my friend. Maria, thank you for joining us, sis.
Oh, it's my pleasure, sis. Mwah to you.
I'm so glad to see you. I'm so grateful for who you are and all that you do. And it's a lot. So let me just start off by asking you what we ask everybody in 3 words. How are you doing today?
In 3 words.
That's always the tough part.
Blue sky, but that only counts for 1 word.
Okay.
Inspired by my students, that's 1 word.
That's 1 word, okay.
And still fighting.
And still fighting, indeed you are. I mean, you've covered movements, icons, and you are one. You've covered the complicated space between those 2 things for your entire career. And when that New York Times story broke about Cesar Chavez, that he was being accused of molesting children of the movement as young as 12 and assaulting others, what really went through your mind as a Latina, as a journalist who spent decades thinking about who really gets to be the hero in this country?
Well, thank you, Brittany. First of all, it's just great to be in conversation with you. So thank you so much. Thank you so much. And hello to your audience. I'm so happy to be here sharing these thoughts with you. So I have to be very honest. I was not a fan of Cesar Chavez. Now, the reason why is because I had had dealings with him as a member of the media in the 1990s when he had already, he was no longer leading the United Farm Workers. And the interactions around him and the media and how he dealt with journalists were very disappointing. And anytime, as journalists, when you perceive that there's a resistance to want to talk, there's always some concern.
Yeah, so, you're like, what's the reason? What's up?
Yes, like why are you so I and from the very beginning, when I began to interview Dolores Huerta in the 1990s, maybe my first interview with her may have been in the late 1980s, but in the 1990s, really consistently interviewing her and being in spaces with her, I was very clear that to me, Dolores was more important to the movement. Her integrity and her credibility, as opposed to Cesar Chavez, because there had been some concerns around Cesar Chavez towards the end of his career and his life. Now, having said that, that just meant that I was not on the Cesar Chavez bandwagon, but I was still horrified. To find out that he was doing this to little girls, grooming. And then Dolores, who is, Dolores is a rock. She is that person who I look to and just be like, I want to be like Dolores when I'm 95.
Or when I'm like 25, 45.
Exactly. Like a living example of how to be. And Dolores always talks about every crisis is an opportunity to organize and to educate. And so having to ask her those difficult questions about what do we do now, thinking that she was being assaulted in the 1960s before we had words for what was happening. Rape was something that happened between a stranger and a woman in the back alley with a knife at your throat. It was not this notion like, wait, somebody could do this to you?
That's right. That's
So,
right.
seeing Dolores so beaten down, and I had a hard time saying that because
Mm,
we have never seen her beaten down. Even in fact, when
never.
when she was beaten down in the
That's right.
1990s, when the police came after her, she was like, "Okay, now I'm going to sue you."
That's right.
So this was really hard, and I'm not sure that anybody's quite over it yet, to be honest.
We're, of course, talking about the iconic leader, organizer, activist Dolores Huerta, who co founded the Farm Workers Union with Chavez. Let's always give her flowers. She gave a statement the day that the news broke, Maria, and then afterwards, she made the decision to sit down with you for her first interview. And I think that's so powerful. What was the question you wanted most to ask her?
We were speaking with her hours after she had read the New York Times report for the first time.
Mm.
We had been asked to not go on camera because she had been crying the whole morning.
Oh, God, my whole heart is broken hearing that.
So you understand.
Yeah.
And you're going into an interview with this person,
Yeah.
and you're having to manage the fact that you're carrying this pain with her. Brittany,
Yeah.
I'm very public about being a rape survivor myself,
Mm-hmm.
that I
Likewise.
really came to understand it. I'm sorry, I didn't know that we shared that.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Unfortunately, but I'm really glad that we're able to speak about it, right? Because
That's right.
we cannot let this be something that takes us down, as it were, as horrific as
That's
it may
right.
be. So, kind of realizing that she and I now share this reality was very hard.
Mm.
And knowing that I was going to have to ask her the tough questions. I was just speaking with my executive producer, and she told, because we got a limited time, which never happens with Dolores.
Right.
But she was like, she's emotionally spent. She only has this amount of time. And my executive producer basically saying to me, you need to move on to some of the tough questions, because I was having a hard time just hearing her and seeing her in this kind of situation.
Yeah.
And I think it's worse than we can imagine, is what I'm prepared to say, because I haven't done any further reporting on this.
Yeah.
But my sense is that, what I've been saying is that Cesar Chavez was a brilliant strategist.
Yeah.
In terms of working tens of thousands of people to get something done.
Yeah.
But he was also
Good
a
God.
strategic, brilliant sexual assaulter. He was grooming girls. He was grooming Dolores. I think that that's the part where she's having to recognize.
Yes.
So he was a person who was leading a really important movement, but honestly, I have always thought it was more about Dolores and what she accomplished.
Absolutely. And the first time I met Dolores was through our friend, Jose Antonio Vargas, as Define American helped move the documentary about Dolores's life around the country. And I did a panel, I think in North Carolina, with her. And I was starstruck, yes, but I was awestruck by how much energy and fight and tenacity and joy just emanated from her so naturally. And at this time, like, she's an elder. I'm over here trying to be respectful. Do you need me to open the door, to move your seat out? You want some water? And she's like, I'm good. What are we doing next? Right? Like, there's just so much energy. And then to read that and know that she had been carrying this with her for decades, what had happened to her, dealing with the children that had come from those assaults and watching them be raised in a loving home that she placed them in, but not by her, because she was holding this secret. My entire heart broke, and I was ready to fight somebody like they had done that to my grandma, because that's how I feel about her. There's this eye-opening moment, though, in the conversation between the two of you, where she said keeping this secret was worth it for the progress of the movement. Let's listen just for a second.
I do believe that that would have been the end of the movement pretty much at the very, very beginning. And I can see all of the accomplishments, the leadership that came out of the movement, the millions of farm workers that have been helped throughout the United States of America. And it was my personal pain. It was my personal problem. And, I think it was worth it. because it was my cross to bear.
My cross to bear, my God, Dolores Huerta feels like what was done to her was her cross to bear. How have you been making sense of that moment, Maria? I mean, have you?
I mean, one, I think it shows what sexual assault felt like before. It's not as if we've resolved it, right? Because,
That's right.
of course, we're putting everything that we're experiencing with Dolores Huerta within the context of the lack of any action on the Epstein files and what the
That's right.
Epstein files reveal about the
Mm-hmm.
level of sickness that these powerful men have. How bad do the conditions have to be for a woman to say, I'm going to take this one, I'm going to take one for the team? Twice, right?
That's right. I was going to say not just one. Yeah.
I'm going to take a couple for the team.
Mm.
So how bad? I mean, and that's the thing about Dolores, right? When you talk about having purpose in life, I think, Brittany, the reason why we admire each other so much is because I feel your purpose.
Likewise.
I feel your purpose and you feel
Thank
mine.
you.
And Dolores, she has purpose.
Yeah.
And the purpose has been el movimiento, the movement for justice for the most vulnerable, the farm workers, right? The farm workers. By the way, there is an analysis out there that basically says the treatment of undocumented farm workers in the United States right now is really the litmus test for the treatment of all workers, right? How low can it go is basically going to lower everybody's treatment in terms of their labor rights in this country. And so Dolores is committed to this, and she's committed to history and making history. So that was hard. And I guess, Brittany, and I know that you're hypercritical of what can happen in a movement, right? And people don't like it when you're hypercritical, but I think we have to be able to say, look, this is why we should not be idolizing one person.
That's
specifically one man.
That's right.
This is why we have to actually create movements. Yes, there are going to be leaders.
Yeah.
But I think this generation, right, is going to find a way to make it work. And also, can we have more women in power, please? I mean,
please, immediately, if not sooner. Earlier in the show, we were discussing this wave of violence that we've seen against women, most certainly against Black and brown women, rapes, femicides, thinking about people like Dr. Serena Fairfax right now, who, of course, was murdered by her husband. And what is so fascinating to me is there was this move to protect the reputation of former Lieutenant Governor Justin Fairfax, who, by the way, did not become governor and really fell out of public life because he was credibly accused by two Black women of sexually assaulting them. And suddenly in this murder, this incredibly tragic murder-suicide where these children are now orphaned and left to deal with the fallout, there have been other men who have said, well, this is really a mental health problem, or if he had just been able to be governor, he would never have fallen into this deep depression. And it made me think of Dolores. It made me think of Cesar Chavez. It made me think of the ways that we lionize and idolize men in particular. And when we find out that they were evil and dastardly and strategic in how they preyed on people and harmed people, we have so much trouble letting go of the version of them that we once had. How should our audience be thinking about how we read about these people?
So the issue of mental health is actually really interesting, right? Because, one, it's the accessibility of guns, right? These murders, these mass murders are happening with guns. So there is that, right? And so instead of dealing with, holy Jesus, like the issue of gun control, again, must be front and center. It's more like, poor man with his mental health problems. Same thing that they tried to do as I covered the massacre in Uvalde, Texas, right? It was like, well, it's not about the guns. It's about mental health. And now Republicans, right, really caring about mental health when they never took mental health seriously at all. And again, all of this is happening within the context of felon 47 being in the White House.
Yeah.
You know, I only speak in facts. So he is a felon. He is president number
Indeed.
47. So we have in fact become I'm going to couch this, but it feels like we have become a lawless society. I mean, when ICE is being given permission by the Supreme Court to stop you just because of the way you look, sound, or talk, or where you work, then this is in fact the scary part of an authoritarian regime.
That's right.
And I think the violence just spreads out, you know, in these cases, which is just like, nothing's going to happen to me.
Yeah.
Everybody will just feel bad and sad for me. So your question about, well, who is writing those headlines?
Yeah.
Well, we know many times who is writing those headlines. And they're carrying their misogyny, their racism, their issues around guns. They're carrying all of that as these men oftentimes write the headlines that the rest of us all are consuming.
Yeah. I mean, we talk about how the story is being reported. We also have to talk about how, as the public, we respond to it. And about a month out from the initial story, we're in a place where public squares and school names of César Chávez are being debated. Murals have been painted over. Holidays have been canceled or renamed. In your view, is that the right kind of reckoning? Or are we at the risk of performing accountability instead of actually practicing it?
I understand people are like, we don't want to see his face, but it's more important. And I don't like the word reckoning because there's something that doesn't sit right with the question reckoning. And I'm not sure how we're going to do this because I don't think Dolores is going to be public anymore. I don't think she's going to. I know this is very heartbreaking for us. But I think, as she said, she was like, you know, there's a chance that I will become the target. And she has. And there have been very, very difficult questions thrown at her. So I don't think Dolores is part of the conversation. So then it's like, so then what do we do?
Yeah.
And I think it's still too soon almost. But I mean, I hate to say this, but I think that for Dolores, and this is just my observation, I haven't spoken with her about this, that potentially what might hurt her more emotionally is actually seeing the movement being painted over. The loss of, you know, she's like, don't name the holiday after me, name it after the farm workers, which is okay, or just the disappearance of it all. You know, if they shut down Cesar Chavez Boulevard, what's going to happen? Will they rename it, or is it just gone? So the movement is gone. So I worry that the movement disappearing, it could be more dangerous for Dolores's mental and emotional health than having to go public about the fact that she was assaulted in the 1960s. I know that that's hard to hear, but that's how much it means to her. So I don't have the right answer, but we need to be having this conversation for sure.
I want to transition to a little bit of news overall before I let you go. We're 16 months into Trump's second term. Yuck. The administration has barred some traditional outlets from the White House press pool. And then there have also been mass layoffs at CBS and the Washington Post that have affected a lot of journalists, but especially journalists of color. So there's been a rise at the same time in independent media, which I think is critical because when we look at how important the state controlling media is to the building of authoritarian regimes, we got to pay attention to what's going on right now. How dire do you think the current state of media is, especially from the point of view of a woman of color?
It is incredibly dire. We are witnessing the destruction of the credibility of our famed CBS News, of the Washington Post, right? We are watching journalists do interviews with Felon 47, unable to push back. You know, we could go on and on and on about all the terrible things, the layoffs. I mean, it is terrifying. But again, I'm not prepared to throw in the towel.
That's right.
I mean, I'm telling you, I have students who
Yeah.
come into my office during my office hours, and they're just like, "Hello, professor. We just did a FOIA request on this issue, this issue. We're about to break this story. All of this has to do with their reporting on the Columbia Barnard campus, which, as you know, there's a lot to say here.
There's a lot to say there.
So I'm really proud of them. I really do feel like something's going to come of this. You know, I think back to 2010 when I formed Futuro Media. And I formed Futuro. I was desperate. I didn't have a job. I was in my 50s. I already had a big mouth. I was not going to get hired. I was terrified. But you know, I live pretty close to the Frederick Douglass statue here in Harlem. And I often go and sit with Frederick. And you know, what he's telling me always is like, if I could do this, you can do it, sister. If I can do this, you can do this. And so that's my motto, right? Is that what the work that we are doing, you, Brittany, myself, and so many others, we are part of a long arc of journalism of conscience.
That's right.
And that's why we don't give up.
That's right.
It's hard, but we're not the first ones to be doing this. There's a history of, to use that term, resistance in the United States. That's the thing about this country, right? Is that it's incredibly abusive, but you also have people who are going to step up to the abuse and say no.
Especially when we think about the women that fueled Frederick Douglass, especially his first wife, Anna Douglass. I'm with you 1,000%. Before I let you go, you talk about not being from here, and in 1989, you had to give up your Mexican citizenship to become an American, and you just spent years, and I mean years, working to get it back, and you finally did. I'm so excited for you, and not just because I might need to stow away and it gets real crazy around here, okay? But you've said that journey is both deeply personal and inherently political. Fill us in on why you gave it up originally and what it means to you now in this moment in America that you finally got that green passport back.
Yes, ma'am. So, I was born in Mexico City. My dad gets a job at the University of Chicago because honestly, may he rest in peace. He was brilliant. He helped to create the cochlear implant.
Wow.
And so we all come, we have green cards. I always grew up knowing I was the other, Brittany. It was very clear. I knew I had my green Mexican passport and this thing called a green card. In 1989, by now I had already was working as a journalist. I had traveled to Cuba. I had traveled to revolutionary Nicaragua. I was doing more international travel, and I got really worried. I was like, you know, one day I'm going to come with my green card and they're going to say, nope, not anymore. And that's why I became an American citizen.
Yeah.
But Mexico did not allow dual citizenship. Mexico was a very patriotic country. They were not going to share their citizenship, especially not with the U.S. In 1998, the possibility of getting your Mexican citizenship opens up. But basically, I was busy being a CNN correspondent, raising kid, blah, blah, blah. And then it's basically around the election of Donald Trump when I begin to ask the question, well, wait a second, I want my Mexican citizenship back. Here's the thing. My full name that I was given on my birth certificate in Mexico is Maria de Lourdes Hinojosa Ojeda. You know how the Mexicans are.
Yeah.
But there's nothing.
Child, we the same way. Give us all of it.
But there's no ID that I have in the U.S. that has that full name. Therefore, it just became really complicated for me because I didn't have this ID. So it became a bureaucratic thing that I just became very committed. It basically took me 10 years. I was like, because the pandemic happened, everything was shut down for years and years. And so, yes, in November, finally, I got my Mexican voting card because now I'm able to vote in 2 countries.
Yeah.
Which I really love, having an impact on 2 democracies. And now I can, with my Mexican passport, yes, Brittany, I can buy something in Mexico. I mean, I have no money thanks to Felon 47, but you know, that's
just
real.
A little tiny detail, yeah.
But it's you just got to dream, and honestly, when I take it one step further, it's really, yes, about me. I'm so happy. But also it's for my kids. They now, my adult children who also have husband and wife, they now can get their Mexican citizenship.
Yes.
So that to me is like the long game. You know, we thought that the American dream was it.
Yeah.
And in the end, Mexico, where everybody was like, it has a non-functioning democracy, well, they elected a woman. And a progressive woman at that, who supports the cause of the people of Palestine and has Jewish cultural descendancy in Mexico. So I think of Mexico right now as an example of what's possible, what's possible in the future, and to never give up, honestly.
Yeah.
Never give up on anything, because now I got that green Mexican passport.
You got that green passport back. Well, Maria, I'm glad for your sake and for your children's sake and for me, the stowaway's sake, that you remained undistracted in getting that passport, and that you remain undistracted in telling our stories truthfully and with so much care and love. Thank you so much for joining us here. And I hope to have you back really soon.
I hope so too, sweet. It's been too long. And congratulations on your family and the life and career you have built. I'm really proud of you.
Thank you. That means so much to me. Thank you. I love you.
Love you.
Y'all know I'm busy every day raising these two boys of mine. Reggie and I do every single thing we can to make sure that they experience joy and that we uplift and nurture each of their unique genius, and that we protect them from being preyed on. And yet, as a boy mom, I know that one of the most important jobs that he and I will ever do is raise these two boys who, unless and until they tell us otherwise, will grow up to be men. To raise them not to be predators. Boy mom is a label that carries a whole lot of ridiculousness with it. And while people want to make fun t-shirts and TikTok trends, the thing that we should do the most, and the thing that we should be the best at, is raising young men who do not believe that they are entitled to anybody's body, time, or commitment just because they want it. Society will do plenty to tell them that that's what they deserve, that they can take whatever they want by any means necessary, violence included. It's going to be up to us to raise a different generation. In part because when we don't, men are hurt, women are hurt, non-binary people are hurt. Dentists who loved their patients are killed. Vice mayors who wanted to change the world are murdered. And children are killed simply because their mother tried to get out. So I have a responsibility to raise my two boys, not to be predators, but protectors and partners. And I have a responsibility to raise them well and with love, because there are 8 children in Shreveport who can't be raised by anyone and can't grow up in love. Their names are Jayla Elkins, age 3, Shayla Elkins, age 5, Kayla Pugh, age 6, Layla Pugh, age 7, Markaden Pugh, age 10, Soraya Snow, age 11, Kadarian Snow, age 6, and Braylon Snow, age 5. Thank you for listening. Thanks for being, and especially today, thank you for doing. I'm Brittany Packnett Cunningham. Let's go get free.